Leading can be gratifying and often exhilarating, but it also comes with dark secrets. And today we're counting down our picks for the world's greatest leaders with the darkest secrets. Before starting our video, don't forget to smash the subscribe button and click the notification bell for more amazing content. So let's get this video started. Number 3. Winston Churchill. In 2002, Winston Churchill was voted one of the best British people who had ever lived. During World War II, he was Britain's Prime Minister. He led the country through its worst times while keeping troop morale up and making sure Britain won the war against Nazi Germany. People often say that Winston Churchill was the only thing that kept the Nazis from destroying the UK. Without Winston Churchill's leadership, it's possible that the Nazis would have crossed from France into Britain and changed history. He was in politics for about 70 years, so it's not surprising that he got into some controversies. One of the things that got him into trouble was when he ignored the Bengal famine. In 1943, when India was still ruled by the British, there was a terrible famine in the northeastern Bengal region. This was caused by the Japanese taking over Burma the year before. At least 3 million people died, and Churchill's actions, or lack thereof, have been criticized. Even though he wouldn't give India the wheat it needed, he kept pushing for it to send rice to help the war effort. The war cabinet ordered that a stockpile of wheat be made so that people in Europe could eat after they were freed. So 170,000 tons of Australian wheat went to storage instead of the starving country of India. Churchill even seemed to say that the famine was caused by the Indians by saying that they breed like rabbits. Churchill thought it was a waste of time. Churchill didn't want to talk about it because he was busy fighting Germany in Europe and didn't want to be bothered by it. We think of Churchill as being wise and able to see the future, but what he did in the tragic case of the Bengal famine showed that there was no progress at all. Number 2. Martin Luther King Jr. During the most active part of the civil rights movement in the United States, Martin Luther King Jr. stood in front of cameras and crowds for a little over 15 years as a public example of the best in people. But King was a very different person in private. In fact, more and more details about his dark side keep coming out, forcing us to accept that King was a flawed person. Martin Luther King Jr.'s public life began in the early 1950s when he led a campaign to stop using public transportation in Montgomery, Alabama. He was only 26 years old at the time, but his simple, powerful speech against segregation in the South stunned the whole country. When people found out that this young politician on the street also had a PhD in systematic theology from Boston University, his words became more important. King was at the front of the early civil rights movement because of his strong academic background as much as anything else. But there are questions about these credentials. Graduate students usually have to write a book-length paper called a dissertation in order to be considered for a PhD. This work should be original research in the field and should add to the academic knowledge of the student's field to be accepted. The committee that looked over King's 1955 dissertation, a comparison of the conceptions of God in the thinking of Paul Tillich and Henry Nelson Weeman, gave him a doctorate after accepting it. Decades later, though, it came out that King had taken whole paragraphs from other sources and put them in his dissertation without giving credit. This is called plagiarism in the academic world, and it's usually enough to get your credentials taken away. In 1991, a committee from Boston University met to look into the case. They found that the dissertation had authorship issues, but they didn't think that Dr. King's credentials should be taken away. They did, however, put a letter with a summary of what they found with the paper, which is still there to this day. Number 1. King Tutankhamun. What do Cleopatra, Charles V of Spain, and Queen Victoria have in common with Tutankhamun? In addition to being royalty in their own parts of the world, they were all the result of inbreeding, and they all had genetic disorders that were caused by keeping it in the family, a tradition that has been especially popular with royalty over the years. The ancient Egyptians were no different, and one famous example is Cleopatra. Because they wanted a pure bloodline, the Ptolemaic dynasty wanted family members to marry. The tradition went back so far that Cleopatra only had 4 great-great-grandparents, while most people have 32. She married her 2 younger brothers herself. When his rich, hidden tomb, KV 62, was found in the Valley of the Kings in 1922, Tutankhamun became more well known. Archaeologists didn't know much about his family, the 18th dynasty of the Egyptian New Kingdom, even though he is one of the most well-known pharaohs. Researchers looked at the young king's DNA in 2010 and found that he was almost certainly the child of the despised pharaoh Akhenaten and Akhenaten's sister. They'd led millions through good times and bad, but these few world leaders were also known for their dark secrets. That was it for today's video. Do you know any other world leaders with dark secrets? Do let us know in the comments. If you liked this video, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your time. We'll see you later.